us, and this is what you're going to receive from your teacher on your handout today. Behind us are tips in English and Spanish that we're going to go over about how to make sure that your reading is really high leverage and effective.
Detrás de nosotros, si ven en español y en inglés, están los trucos de cómo leerle efectivamente a sus estudiantes.
Now, the first one is also the most important one, and it's the most simple, and that is, it is critical that you are sitting right next to the person, your student, that you are reading with. So this is not something where they can read to you while you're cooking in the kitchen. This is not something where you can be on other sides of the couch trying to maybe get some work done. Unfortunately, this has to be right next to them with all of your focus and attention on that student. If you have multiple students who are reading at similar levels, you can definitely use that time to read with both of them, or you can use that time to have the older student or the younger student reading independently while you're just reading one-on-one. Now, that can be pretty time-consuming, and we all know that you're very busy. So one important point to remember, it is so much more helpful to read for 10 minutes like this every night than for 2 hours once on the weekends, or even for 2 hours nightly doing it the wrong way. So 10 minutes the right way is going to get you so much more than 2 hours not done well.
El primer truco es el más importante y es estar al lado de su estudiante bien cerquita viéndolos leer. Sabemos que muchos de ustedes tienen otros estudiantes que también tengan que leer, entonces los pueden sentar todos al lado suyo, o si tienen estudiantes que sean un poco diferentes en edad, los puede poner, digamos, a los más pequeños y a los más grandes leer solos mientras que está con el estudiante que quiere enfocarse, o viceversa. La otra cosa es muy importante que ustedes sepan que es más importante leer bien por 10 minutos cada noche, ya que sabemos que tienen mucho que hacer, en vez de leer 20, 40, 2 horas una vez a la semana. Es muy importante que lo pasen tiempos cortos en vez de un tiempo largo, pero que lo hagan bien.
Now, the second most important thing to understand is there is no age that is too old to be read aloud to. So my friend Stephen here is in 1st grade, so he's pretty big already, but even 4th graders should still be read aloud to, and that is because you know, as a parent, how to model reading with good pacing, good expression, and you're also taking that chance to help your student understand the story before they try it independently. So I'm going to show you what that looks like with Stephen here. Stephen, we're going to read this book called Ugly Fish, and you started to read it a little bit. Is it okay if I read a few of the pages to you, and then I'll let you take a turn? Awesome. So this book is called Ugly Fish, and it's written by 2 people, Carol LaRoe and Scott Magoon, all right? And you can see it's probably a pretty good title, because do you think that's a pretty fish? No, what would you call that?
An ugly fish?
It's a pretty ugly fish, guys. So, very good book.
Ugly fish.
Ooh, my turn, then your turn. Does that sound good? And I know you know these words. Can you listen to how I read it? Mm-hmm. Ugly fish was ugly and big and mean. He liked swimming around in his fish tank. He liked gliding in and out of his driftwood tunnel. He liked eating his special briny flakes. Now, ordinarily, I would read the entire book. We would talk about it, and then I would give Stephen a chance to try it on his own. If you're reading with older readers, you can read the entire chapter and then have them read it back to you. You're not giving away anything by having them hear the words once. Instead, you're modeling what it should sound like when it's their turn. So you're just making it easier for them to be successful, and you're going to invest them in the process a lot more.
Una de las cosas importantes también es que a cualquier edad puede usted leerle a sus hijos, no solo porque sean chiquitos se les tiene que leer, pero también con los grandes de 4º o 5º grado es importante que sigan leyendo. Como Ms. Foster acaba de modelar, es muy importante que tengan la expresión correcta y que tengan la fluidez o el ritmo correcto cuando lean, y por eso es que nos gusta que los padres lean, porque ustedes saben cómo leer, a qué ritmo y con qué expresión. Como vieron en Ms. Filsinger, la voz cambia y fluctúa en mitad del libro porque lleva bastantes expresiones. Y lo último es que pueden leerle una vez el libro entero a su niño o a su niña y después hacerle que ellos le lean. Al usted leerle la primera vez no están perdiendo nada del libro, lo que están haciendo es modelando cómo deben de leer los niños y entonces así cuando ellos le relaten el libro, les lean otra vez el libro, van a saber cómo hacerlo.
Okay, you ready to keep going? Okay, I think it's your turn now. So it's important to remember that no matter how hard your student is struggling with a word, you should never give it to them. It is better to say, maybe next time, and go to the next word than give it to them. If you get into the habit of telling kids words that they do not know, then they do not build a tolerance for failure and a tolerance for struggling through a word that's really going to help them as they get older and start encountering a lot of new words and less pictures to help them out. So when Stephen gets to a word that he doesn't know, you're going to notice that I never tell him what it is. Instead, I ask him a lot of questions to help him figure it out. And the 3 questions that I'm going to use, I'm not going to say sound it out. The 3 questions I'm going to use are, can the pictures help you? Can the first letter help you? And do you see any part of the word that you can say? So that last strategy is called chunking, and it's when you identify a very small part of the word, like an outer. Maybe a kid can read out, and then you can cover up the first part of it, and then they can read the second part, and then they put it together. So these tips are going to be itemized for you on the list that you receive.
Lo otro es que cuando le están leyendo, sus niños le están leyendo a usted y ven una palabra que está un poco difícil, no la pueden pronunciar, no se lo digan, no le digan la palabra, en vez díganles que se esfuercen un poco y traten de responder y de leer bien esa palabra. Y hay 3 cosas que les pueden preguntar. No solo cómo suena la letra, sino que lo primero es, ¿te puede ayudar las fotos? ¿Te puede ayudar la ilustración alrededor de la palabra? Esa es la primera. La segunda es que puede identificar esa primer letra. De pronto eso también le ayuda a identificar la palabra. Y la tercera es que puede dividir la palabra en pedazos más cortos porque tal vez el niño o la niña pueda leer un pedazo más corto y después ya leer la palabra entera. Nunca se lo digan porque entonces los niños no van a aprender a poder identificar esas palabras cuando ya estén más grandes y no tengan tantas ilustraciones. Entonces déjenlos que luchen un poco para que así ganen esas palabras.
Okay, so Stephen, are you ready to read some words for me? Awesome. Can you hold that up and make sure you're doing some nice finger tracking for me so that the parents at home can see what we do with our fingers when we're reading?
Ugly fish was ugly and big and mean. He liked swimming around in his fish tank. He liked
Good self-correction.
glide and out.
Very good. Stephen, can I stop you for a second? So you said he liked glide in. Does that sound right? Okay. Now, do you see any part of that word that could help you? You got this first part here, glide, and then here's the second part. Do you know how to say that? So let's use another word to help us, okay? Can you read this part for me?
He liked swimming.
Swimming. Now, do you see any part of swimming that is in this word?
That one and this one.
That's perfect. That I, what do those letters read them to me?
The
I, N.
N G.
Very good. So let's say this word one more time. Say it slowly.
Swimming.
Okay, so if this is swimming, what sound do you think the ing makes?
And
Very good. Can I say it one more time? Swimming. So what sound does ing make?
bing.
Ing. Very good. So let's try that. He liked glide.
In.
Okay, let's put that together. Yep.
He liked gliding and out.
Very good. Is it okay if Miss Natalia tells everyone what you just did? Because it was really good.
Cuando Steven estaba leyendo, vino una palabra que es gliding. Él no la leyó completamente cuando decía glide in, tuvo un poquito de problema con las tres, la parte final de esa palabra, pero dijo glide, la primera parte. Entonces Miss Filsinger fue y le mostró otra palabra que tenía el mismo, las mismas tres letras al final de la palabra, y entonces le hizo a él que él repitiera el sonido. Ya que él identificó ese sonido, entonces se la llevó a la palabra que estaba tratando de leer, y ahí Steven pudo decirle la palabra correcta y pronunciarla correctamente, sin que ella le dijera cómo se dice la palabra.
One day a new fish clay
So you did a really good job because you realized that sometimes EAR makes the sound, but sometimes it actually makes the sound E, okay? And in this word, EA makes the E sound. So you got this part, you said up, because you saw the A and you saw the P, up, but this is going to make the ear sound. Can you try that again?
up, red.
You said up, ed, but it's not going to make the sound, it's going to make the ear sound. Try it again.
Up,
Ear.
ear, ed, rear ed,
Up.
rub, ed, red.
That was really persistent. You know what, Steven? I'm going to tell you what that word means. I'm not going to tell it to you because later on, someday, you're going to see that word and you're going to figure out what it is, okay? When you're ready for it. So one day, a new fish blank in the tank. Now, what do you think would make sense there? One day, a new fish blank in the tank.
Because
What's a word that would make sense? A new fish blank in the tank.
this one and that one.
What is a word that would make sense?
This one and this one.
What's that fish doing?
He's gliding in.
So instead of saying appeared, do you want to say like glided? Let's try that.
One day a new fish glide in the tank.
Except it has ed on the end, so we need to say glided, right? Try it again.
One day a new fish glided in the tank.
Very good. So the word is actually appeared, but I would never give Steven the word because it's much more valuable for me to try to coach him on getting him there. Now, once he was struggling with that middle part, I decided to move on from it, but it's really important to help the student tell you what would make sense if they can't actually think of the word, because then they're going on, they're still thinking about the meaning of the sentence, but you're not worrying about them getting the really hard word right.
Lo que se acaba de ver es que Steven no pudo leer una palabra de la frase y Miss Filsinger no se la dio. Miss Filsinger lo que hizo, le trató de a ver si él podía leer parte de la palabra o otra parte. Cuando ella vio que él tuvo dificultad en leer esa mitad de esa palabra, entonces lo que hizo fue que no lo hizo enfocarse en la palabra ya, porque es más importante a veces que ellos aprendan el sentido entero de la frase y lo que está tratando de decir la frase y el libro, a que solo vean esa palabra. Entonces muchas veces le pueden reemplazar esa palabra y decirle al niño, ¿qué está pasando? ¿Qué crees que está pasando? Reemplaza esta palabra por una que tú sepas, para que así ellos también se sientan bien y después aprendan el sentido y la definición de esa palabra y no solo aprenderse la palabra porque usted se la dijo.
If your student is reading a book that is too challenging for them, you can take turns by choosing the more challenging sentences to read for them and then letting them try out the words that you know that they're going to be more successful with, like this. I am Teensy Fish, the new fish said, flicking his tail fin. What's your name?
I am Ugly Fish, said Ugly Fish. And there's only room for one fish in this tank, me.
Very nice. Now, you read that last part a little slowly. You paused when you were trying to figure out that sight word only. Do you think you could read it again more smoothly? Go ahead.
Can I try again?
Why don't you start right there? Try again.
I am Ugly Fish, said Ugly Fish. And there's only room from one fish in this tank, me.
Do you think you could read it one more time even faster, just to make sure you really got it?
I am Ugly Fish, said Ugly Fish, and there's only room for one fish, room for one fish in this tank, me.
Very good. Now, this is a case of practice makes perfect. I might even ask Stephen to do it one more time just so he's even smoother. If you notice that a student is reading one word at a time, they are not going to understand the meaning of what they read. So if you've ever gotten to the end of the book, asked a student to tell you what they just read about, and they couldn't, it's probably because they were thinking about how to say the words and not what the words meant. Now you'll notice that the last time Stephen read that, he said, instead of saying rom, he said room, because he realized that it would make more sense if you pronounce the word in a different way. Because the more you read something, the better that you'll understand it.
Si su niño está leyendo un libro que es un poco más difícil para ellos, lo que puede hacer usted es leerle esas frases que son un poco más difíciles y dejarlos que ellos lean las otras frases, como hizo Miss Felsinger con Steven. Leyó la parte primera de esa página y después él leyó la segunda página. Al final de esa frase, Steven tuvo un poquito de problema, entonces lo que ella hizo es que él repitiera leerla una y otra vez. Al leerla una y otra vez, ellos se mejoran y entienden lo que han hecho y lo que no han pronunciado bien, entonces lo corrigen. Así como hizo Steven al final, que fue un poquito más fluido y lo hizo bien.
Stephen wants to read one more page, and then we're going to practice retelling what happened so far in the book.
Ugly Fish chased teeny tiny fish around the tank.
Very good. Now, Stephen, can I read back what you read? Ugly Fish chased teeny tiny fish around the tank. Was there anything about that didn't sound right or didn't look right?
I mean, this one?
Mm-hmm. Because you said two words, teeny tiny, but it's not teeny tiny, it's just
Teeny,
except there's a little S here, so it's teen,
teeny,
teen.
teen,
You need to make the S sound, huh?
teeny, tiny,
Almost. Teen. Make the S sound.
teeny, tiny.
C. Mm-hmm. So if this part is C and this part is teen, let's put it together. Teen. Teens. Teensy. Perfect, Stephen. Can you read the whole sentence one more time since you did that so well?
Ugly fish chased teeny fish around the tank.
Very good. Now the most important thing is that you're praising the effort and not whether or not it's actually perfect. Stephen, I really liked how you noticed that this wasn't perfect and then you tried to figure it out, all right? And the first time you didn't say it right, but you just kept trying. That was really cool. Now let's start back. And I want you, and you can use the pictures, I want you to go through and don't read the words to me. Tell me what's happening in the story. Can you do that? Okay, pretend we didn't read it together. I want you to tell me what happened in the story. And before you do that, let's have Miss Natalia explain to everyone what's going on.
Lo último que hizo Steven es que él quiso leer una página más. Cuando vino una palabra que no supo, mi esposo le dijo que por favor dijera las letras para ver el sonido de las palabras. Cuando él no pudo, entonces lo repitió y él hizo un gran esfuerzo para poder hacerlo bien. Es muy importante que ustedes le digan cosas positivas a sus niños en el esfuerzo que ellos hacen, no solo que lo hicieron bien o lo hicieron mal, sino el esfuerzo que están dando, porque eso les vale mucho más que tener la palabra correctamente. Ahorita lo que vamos a hacer es que Steven va a ver las ilustraciones, las fotos en las páginas y él nos va a decir y nos va a relatar qué es lo que está diciendo el libro sin él leer.
So the most important thing that you can do is after you're done reading, make sure you talk about what happened in the book. Because from the very beginning, even when they're 4 years old, students need to understand that words are not about sounding them out. It's about understanding how to say them, but also understanding what they mean. So they need to make the link between the work that they're doing to sound things out and also making meaning of sentences. So getting in the practice of always having them retell the story back to you is great. Another thing that you should definitely do is speak with your literacy teachers or whichever teacher is with you tonight about what types of questions you can also ask them other than just having them retell the story.
Lo más importante al final de que usted lea con su niño es que le vuelvan y tener la práctica que sus niños le digan a ustedes qué es la historia. Recontarle la historia de la boca de su niño. Así ustedes pueden preguntarles cosas y que ellos hagan una relación entre la palabra y el significado y en el entorno de lo que se quiere decir en realidad el libro, y no solo es memorizarse palabras. Lo que puedan hacer ustedes esta noche es hablar con la maestra de literatura, con la maestra que ustedes estén, y preguntarles qué se les puede preguntar a los niños cuando ellos les devuelvan esa historia y les vuelvan a contar qué es lo que está pasando para ver si ellos de verdad están entendiendo.
Okay. So can you tell me what happened in the story so far? Who's that?
The ugly fish.
What did he do?
He's like swimming. He loved swimming in like his tank, and then he loved like to glide right here, do that in and out like that.
And I like how you use that tough word, glide. Good stuff. What else did he like?
That the fish was like eating his food and getting his tongue out and his teeth.
I like how you're using the pictures. What happened next? You can turn the page if you want to.
He saw like a little tiny fish, and then he like looked his like eyes right here to the fish.
And how do you think he felt about the new fish?
He felt like a little bit like planny.
Planny. Like he was trying to come up with a plan. Is that what you mean? That's really clever. How did you know that?
Because he looked a little bit like hungry, and then like he like didn't like he just like tricked him. He tricked the fish. He was like gonna be in the tank and then eat the fish.
So what do you think's gonna happen then?
He's gonna eat the fish.
Maybe he's gonna eat the fish. That's a great prediction. Absolutely. So ordinarily I'd have Steven tell me the whole story, but we only read part of it, and also you guys kind of get the picture. But they can use the pictures to help them. You can ask them questions as they go along, retelling the story to you. You'll notice I asked Steven to make several predictions or explain why he thought something was true.
Cuando sus niños les están relatando lo que pasó en el libro, Steven lo que dijo predicciones, porque pues no se pudo leer todo el libro, entonces de lo que leyó, él pudo hacer una hipótesis de lo que iba a pasar en el futuro. Pero mi esposo le preguntó qué es lo que está pasando, qué pasó con el pez, qué no hizo, qué hizo, y qué es lo que va a pasar, para que él esté pensando y no solo leyendo sin entender.
And the most important thing to do, especially since most of our students are learning a second language, is to choose a few vocabulary words you want to talk to them about. So for example, excuse me, Steve. And do you know what flicking means?
Flicking means that like it's like getting like dark and light, dark and light, and dark and light.
That is absolutely true. When you're flicking the light switch, maybe, it gets dark and light. Now, flicking doesn't actually mean the light, though. It means movement. So what part of a fish could flick?
His tail and his fin.
Show me what it would look like if a fish's tail was flicking. With your hands. Good, exactly. It flicks kind of fast back and forth, like a light switch. Like you would go flick on, flick off. Can you flick on the light switch for me? Flick on, flick off. Okay, flick. Flick your tail, flick your tail. Good. So going over specific vocabulary words is also going to be a really, really helpful tool. Miss Paff, can you pause there?